Greetings and thanks for joining us on Talk of the Town. I'm Jane Jude. Well, with unprecedented interest in the Hilton Head Island mayor's race, there were 7 candidates then, and the winner, Drew Laughlin, vacated his seat in Ward 3 in Hilton Head Island Town Council. There's also a swirl of interest in that race, and one of the candidates is here with us today. County Councilman Steve Baer represents a similar area in the Beaufort County Council, and he's now running for Town Council. Thanks for joining us, Steve.
Good morning, Jane. How are you?
So why are you making the change from county to town?
That's a good question. Over the last year or so, I've been looking at some of the issues and opportunities that we have in the town. Things like the heritage, increasing tourism, bringing in more visitors and more residents, studying the impact of proposed new taxes, such as the 1% sales tax, which is unfortunately coming up again in the woodwork. Hilton Head has a lot of issues and opportunities, and almost more now than I'm seeing in my county job. And I've lived here for 8.5 years. I love the town. I think my analytic ability would be of use in helping solving some of those problems and seizing the opportunities.
Well, you've just won re-election, actually running unopposed in county council. Now, if you were elected town council, there would be another special election for county council.
That's correct. And 2 people already have called inquiring about that, and I suspect other people, good people, will come out.
Interesting. So they didn't want to run against you then, but if there's going to be a vacated seat, they'll do it so there's not an incumbent.
It's easier to run on against an empty seat than a full seat. That's one of the reasons I decided to run for town council. After the county council election was declared and Drew Laughlin was winner, that seat happened to be open in the ward that I live in. So that created a very unique opportunity.
So you're running for yourself and not necessarily against the incumbent.
I hope so. And some of the things I've learned in my 4 years on county council and the ways I've seen local government work and the ways to get things accomplished, I think will be very useful here in the town.
Wonderful. Well, you have a background in telecommunications and engineering, and that analytical mind has served you well already in some pretty controversial positions in the county council. Mm-hmm. But you seem to be able to bring people around your way to thinking pretty frequently.
That's an interesting point. Sometimes I come home from county council at night and I'm discouraged because only about half of what I'd like to see happen really happens. And I talk to my wife a lot about that. She's a wonderful soul. And she says if I were a baseball player and winning half the battles, I'd be wealthy. 50% is a good ratio. Whereas an engineer, I look at 50% and I'm kind of depressed on some days. Other days, I'm very happy.
Well, you have a position and you certainly speak your mind well. All right, so we have a laundry list of issues, and let's see if we can briefly just hit some of the high points on Hilton Head Island, starting out with dredging.
Okay. Dredging is a very complicated issue. It affects not only the Harbor Town area, but some of the other marinas around Harbor Town. I think that issue is desperately in need of an understanding of data. I hear things from the folks with a vested interest who would like to see town and county money put on it. And I think what's really needed is an unbiased engineering study of exactly what's the problem in dredging, where would the material come from, what are the options for putting it in other places, including drying it out or local distribution. How much would they cost, and what are options for paying for that? And until we have the hard data, we're just wasting everyone's time. So I mentioned this to the mayor the other day. I am in favor of a 50-50 split of a small amount of money for a joint engineering study to understand that situation in an unbiased way. And we're crying for that. That's symptomatic of every problem we have in the county and on Hilton Head. We make decisions without enough information.
Based on speculation.
Speculation. And some people say, well, that's going to take a lot of time. I've always found that measuring twice and cutting once is the fastest and best way and most cost-effective way for the taxpayer.
Sounds prudent. Well, talking about measuring and cutting and engineering studies, telecommunications, big thing is cell phone coverage. You mentioned you saw some publicity where Hilton Head got a black eye for bad cell coverage.
Yeah, that's a good point. About 2 years ago, I was very envious of the iPhone, so I wanted to go out and buy an iPhone. I talked to the AT&T people here. I did research on it. Wonderful telephone. And I discovered AT&T has very poor coverage on the island. And I actually went to some websites. I actually tried to look at tower locations in the FCC database. And on one of those websites, a travel website, national travel website, Hilton Head and some hotels are specifically mentioned as having bad service. That's kind of a black eye. That's a reputation buster.
Well, when people say, I want to get away for the vacation, that's just not life anymore. People need to be connected.
People need to be connected. And there are things we can do with cell phone service. I think Money is some of the issue. I worked on cellular technology for many years at Bell Labs. The cost of towers is one thing, and the permitting on towers is one thing, and as far as the town's concerned, we can't stand in the way of that, and we need to make permitting easier. But there's such things as the cell sites themselves, and especially the backhaul, which is a connection to the network, the switching and transmission capability.
There's ongoing recurring costs with that.
Those are costs, and the major carriers have other places they want to allocate their money. New York City, San Francisco, Chicago have not only coverage problems, but capacity problems, and they're putting their money there. So I think the thing we need to do here is make it extremely easy for the cell phone providers to put up facilities. I think we need to have a bully pulpit with some of them to bend their arms to do things, and I think we ought to encourage microcells and picocells in the hotels and some of the town properties, which are very cheap to put in, cost-effective to put in, which provide pockets of coverage in key buildings and fill in the holes, fill in the gaps. There's lots of things that can be done there. I have a lot of connections in that industry, and that would actually be a fun problem, but not one of our greatest problems.
But it's certainly, when you drop a call, it's the greatest one to you that moment anyway.
Correct.
All right, so moving on to airports.
Okay, that's the airport business, and I've studied that for about 7 years now. And if you look at the history, I recommend everyone read the book Profit and Politics in Paradise. It's a wonderful book. It's available at the Hilton Head Library. It talks about the history of the development of Hilton Head Island, starting with the Fraser era at Sea Pines. If you look at that book, you'll see the airport issues are over 30 years old. And the funny thing is, some of the names in that book are still active on one side or the other of the argument. I think the airport issues break down into two parts. One is the immediate issue with trees. And I think there's a lot, that's the trimming of trees. There's a lot we could do there. I think we could seek a compromise with some of the people at the north end. Their concern is clear cutting. The town and the county want to do the cheapest thing that they can in clear cutting that area of the airport. And the people living up there say, whoa, that's going to increase noise, that's going to make our life worse, it's going to break the visual sight lines. We need to cut those trees which need to be cut, but many of those trees, I believe, can be trimmed. It's more costly. Might cost
because you have to do it more frequently.
You have to do it more frequently. And the FAA won't pay those recurring costs. But the costs are on the order of $100,000 to $200,000 a year. And for the county and town to share that, to maintain Hilton Head excellence, that's not a high expense. We spend more money every year on subsidizing free landing fees for private aircraft. That costs us about $300,000 a year.
And those hangars. I know you've been outspoken about that.
The hangars are the largest or second largest affordable housing project we have in the county. That's a travesty. This year, I was finally able to get another rent increase, and we fought bitterly over that. And this is what we fought over. The Aviation Board recommended a rent increase which would amount to about 1 cup of Starbucks per week.
Wow. And
we fought, and I finally won that battle, getting enough converts for a rent increase of 2 cups of Starbucks per week. Now that's what we're arguing about. That's what it translates to.
We have just another minute left. What are the other issues that you'd like to bring attention to?
Well, I think it's important to retain the heritage, and I've spent a lot of time with their CFO and looking at their books. I think we need to make sure we retain it, but not use public money to do that, if at all possible. The Clemson study, which I studied at length, says there's $65 million of direct spending in hotels, restaurants, villas down here from the heritage. And some of those people need to ante up $1 million or so or $2 million a year to help support it. The key thing is we need to take this $7 or $8 million one lump that they heritage people, the PGA Tour feels they want, and get permission to break that into 5 or 6 $1 million lumps, in which the city, the town, and the state and the county might take one of those shares, but local businesses need to take some of those shares.
We're out of time. I'd like to talk with you more, but this is it. You have another forum coming up this week, and people can find out about you on your website, electbaer.com, and we appreciate your insights and your information. Thanks for running.
Thank you. Thank you, Jane.
We'll be right back with more Talk of the Town.